And let's look back to when the NTC took power last year. They promised peace, democracy and human rights in Libya. We've actually had the very opposite. There is no peace in Libya. In addition to the 50 people killed over the last 2 days, in February over 100 people were killed. Human rights, well, there's been appalling attacks on black Africans. There's been ethnic violence, racist violence, unpunished. I mean, the people who committed these crimes have been unpunished. There's been desecration of British war graves in Benghazi. Again, the people who did that are unpunished. The fact is the NTC is not in control of the country. There's lawlessness going on, and the country is in a real mess. The main problem is that Libya is awash with arms. And who's to blame for this? Well, it's the Western powers who gave these arms to rebels to topple Gaddafi. And the fact is now you've got militias, you've got different tribal militias, all heavily armed. You've got a very weak, divided government in Tripoli that is not in control of its territory. And so you've got a real recipe for anarchy at the moment. And already Libyans are getting nostalgic for the days of Gaddafi because there is lawlessness there, and it's very similar to what's happened in Iraq. And I'm afraid that the future of Libya doesn't look very good at all. I think the model is, of course, Iraq, because in Iraq the same thing happened. A secular regime was toppled by the West, and the West deliberately stoked up ethnic and tribal divisions in the country. They armed various groups, and now we see what's happening there. We've got bombs going off in Iraq on a regular basis, anarchy, and I think that's what lies in store for Libya. I think we have to look at Iraq and see what happened there. And the interesting point about all this, Carrie, is the Western position. Let's think back to 12 months ago. There was the propaganda in the Western media, the news channels about we must intervene in Libya for human rights and democracy. They had this so-called humanitarian intervention, and what's happened? From a humanitarian aspect, things have got a lot worse. Yeah, but the main Western news channels are not covering the story in the same way they don't cover Iraq. For them, it's the end of the story, Gaddafi's gone, and they're really not interested in reporting what's going on, which is a human rights catastrophe. We're seeing ethnic violence, we're seeing racism against black Africans, but for the West, it doesn't matter. They got what they wanted, and they don't really care now.